Hey everybody, so in this video we're actually going back. This trip happened, Josh and Sharon. We had gone to a couple different places, which we want to do some kind of videos on them just to describe things a little bit more. Um, Unfortunately, in 1719 museum that we had gone to at the Hans Her house, they didn't allow they don't allow filming. I had to clarify some things with them just to see what, can you go there and film if you're not in the way of their tours? Because understandably, they don't want people to be filming on their tours because a lot of people are ignorant and just don't think that they're interrupting the tour, they're getting in the way, and they're distracting people. Well, in this Cornwall Iron Furnace, I have to clarify with them because then I will go on the tour and take you guys through so you can experience that tour as well. I just want to make sure they're okay with it. So this video primarily is me going through the museum that they have there. So not really reading signs. I'm not doing a whole lot of that stuff. I'm gonna put some pictures in, talk about maybe a little bit of context, and try to get some more in towards the end. Maybe I'll try to split this up. I'm not sure how I'm gonna do this yet, but I want to get a long form video out today. And this was, like I said, it was another adventure that we went on with Josh and Sharon. I've had a couple little videos from that, like shorts. I had the thing where I was, the guy outside. They had a bunch of Civil War stuff that he was showing, like the different generals, and then I actually got them all right, shockingly. And then a couple other shorts of the different wheels and them working, and just how cool it really was, because it's Cornwall Iron Furnace is one of those examples of what an iron furnace would have looked like in its operating day and that type of stuff. So it's I think Pennsylvania Museum Commission, the Coleman family, I believe it was Buckingham, they donated this to the Pennsylvania Museum Commission, and they run it. And it's really such a great example, a great tour. So I would like to take you guys on that at some point so you guys can see it for yourselves. You're shocked that much is actually in that building, because it doesn't. I mean, it's big, but it doesn't look that big. But it's getting to see a way of life, and we've talked about plenty. It was almost back in that era, late 1700s through the 1800s. It was sort of, you couldn't throw a stone without hitting another forge or a furnace. They were just essential, and even like lime kilns, those types of things, they were just everywhere. But this particular one was of special renown. And then the iron mining there I think it was the largest iron mining operation east of Lake Michigan or Lake Superior. So, it was over 200 years of mining. It really was something that was extraordinarily essential to the Industrial Revolution, just to everything. What they did there really was quite extraordinary. And this is just a sort of quiet run through, because I think partially I was a little maybe gun shy of filming and stuff like that, just not knowing the rules. And I didn't want to do anything to offend anyone. So those are some things I want to clarify. And then I'm going to go back in. I'm going to take the tour. If you can film, I'm going to film. And then I'm also going to do where I will read the signs and stuff like that as a separate video. But I'm going to go ahead and explain some of this. So you're going to see in this video, Peter Grubb was the one. We talked about a lot of these things with the Pennsylvania historic markers, villages of Cornwall, and also like Manada Gap Iron Furnace was owned by the Grubb family. We've talked a lot about the Colemans. The Colemans would wind out, Robert Coleman, the patriarch of that family, would wind out buying it from the Grubbs, and ultimately this was like the jewel of their empire in the iron industry, because they were an iron family, much like the Grubbs. The Grubbs were more down than in Lancaster County, where the Pennsylvania Renaissance Fair is today. That's Mount Hope Estate, and that is where the Grubbs had their estate, their mansion. But so we talked about all these different people. This museum will take you through where you get to see from when it was founded. Peter Grubb had founded the town of Cornwall. He was looking around originally, I think it was something, I think more for like limestone. And he just happened upon it when he was going around this area looking for land, that he found these three big hills that there were massive iron deposits in. And he ultimately bought the land and bought some more because you needed a lot of land. Everything, a lot of the furnaces back then were, lit via charcoal. And so therefore you needed a ton of wood. The numbers are astounding because they do a video before you go on the tour and they talk about the amount of acreage you almost needed per day just to operate that furnace. And that furnace operated, I think, pretty much the entire year. They didn't take time off at all or anything like that, and it was a lot of land. And that was, like we talked about, one of the towns nearby, Rexmont. That was land that had already been logged, and then it was sold because at that point land was basically useless. So this last man he had the last name of Rex. He bought that land because most of the housing was provided by either the Grubb family or the Coleman family. And a lot of those really cool villages that we go to, whether it's Miners Village, Bird Coleman, North Cornwall, they're these stone houses, really stunning, beautiful little villages, and each one of them would have at some point had their own furnace or rolling mill or whatever as technology changed. These other operations that were more industrial age type buildings, whereas Cornwall Iron Furnace is very much architecturally is like that Revolutionary War era. It had that different older look to it. And so they take you through Peter Grubb, through his sons. I think I say Peter the second for some reason, but it's Peter Jr. Curtis was the older son, and we visited as well for the Pennsylvania Historic Markers. We visited the Hopewell Forge Mansion. It's right along 322 near Burkerville. And Peter Jr. ran that operation. But they're massive operations that these guys ran, had to be completely self-sufficient, and all of them served different purposes. But the Cornwall Iron Furnace in itself was like pretty much a whole operation. And they will go into, then as you go into the Revolutionary War, you'll see the really cool cannonballs there. You'll actually see a cannon that was made there. And you're outside. We've done videos on this as well. Some of the historic markers they have there at Cornwall Iron Furnace, the placards, they'll talk. There's an astounding number of cannons that furnace made for the Revolutionary War effort. And these things were extraordinarily important. Cornwall also was placed far enough from the front of where the war was actually going on that it was relatively safe. They didn't have to worry as much. Like, you'd have a lot of gun works in, like, say, Philadelphia, and Philadelphia eventually got captured. We've done a thing on Hummelstown that they had a secret gun factory there. So these places here in the central Pennsylvania region were extraordinarily important to the war effort, for providing the guns, the cannons, the cannonballs, the bullets, all that kind of stuff was essential that they had that for that effort. And a lot of that stuff came from the area. Also a lot of food and all that. So really quite a neat history in regards to the Revolution. So they'll go through then a lot like Elizabeth Furnace. They would make these, they would make different types of things, probably mainly pig iron. But they also would make different other items too, like cast iron items. So you saw some of the stove, the cast iron lids of the stove, the door that would open. Very artistic, very beautiful. They would do a lot of different items as well there at this operation. So it was, as you go through, I think even like there's a bell or something like that was cast there. But it's a really neat little museum. This isn't necessarily the tour I originally wanted to do, but I want to put this out there so you guys can check it out and at least see what I was able to see with Josh and Sharon. and then we will be going back because I want to make sure if I can go through and do the tour and film them as they do it. It is such a neat tour. And I would also like to take you guys through this museum again where I actually read the placards so you guys can see all and get all the information from it. And it'd be like the second video of going back to this place because they really have a lot of neat events and things like that. So I hope you enjoy this. I'm just gonna do it as this. It's just easier to put these two together, and then go from there. And like I said, we'll be going back to see more, get a chance to come to understand this really extraordinary place and really a way of life that was prevalent for 150 years probably. Just it was we talk about a number of times like Schaeferstown, like Market Square, and the important places, whether it be the Ephrata Cloister, Cornwall Iron Furnace, City of Lancaster, Elizabeth Furnace, and a lot of things revolved around these places, and they were essential community centers, places of trade. There were a lot of things that you couldn't make yourself that you needed these places to be able to do that, to draw the iron from the ground and to get it closer and closer to where it needed to be to make the things that you needed ultimately. So as always, I want to say thank you for coming along, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the video. So here we are at Cornwall Iron Furnace, 1742 to 1883. And we just did the tour, which I'll talk about a bunch of that, but I'm not going to read the signs just because I am warned. You get to see some of the unique things here. These shoes, for instance, the reason they have wood soles, this rubber sole, leather soles would have just worn out, and that also kept you from getting your feet burnt. To see sort of how they would dump these charcoal and the iron ore down a hole, and they use these carts to do so. And you get to see how the furnace actually operated. The original founder of the forge and of Cornwall, Pennsylvania is Peter Grubb. And then ultimately his sons would wind up taking it over, Curtis and Peter II. We've talked about both of them. Here you see some of the pieces of a cast iron furnace. They would have made cannonballs as well. These are 1776, weigh about 12 pounds each for the American Revolution. And it talks about who would have actually bought Cornwall's iron. Maybe at some point we'll come here when I'm a little less tired, and there's a cannon that they would have made. Talks about the Cornwall Iron Banks, which we have visited, which is where they would have gotten their iron ore from the three big hills that Peter Grubb found. Here you see some of the items that the steel workers would have, or the iron workers would have had. Iron miners. Get to see sort of the charcoal process, because that's what they operated off of here. Yeah, pig iron. The casting shed down at the iron furnace, which was incredibly impressive. And once again, here's those cast iron stoves that they would have had. You just see how ornate they were. And the forging. The different items they would have made. There's a hammerhead that was originally at Hopewell Forge. That was down near Brickerville. It actually, I think, had 2 forges there. Here you get to see some of the Hay Creek Forge, some of the mechanics of how these things operate. Very, very cool. Here you get to see one of the original iron workers from 1742. His name is Josh. Josh is one of the folks that helps our channel so much. And then you get to see the iron making community, the indentured servants and slaves that they did have here. See Bell that they would have worked, and then Robert Coleman, who would have bought this from Peter Grubb from his sons, and then created his iron dynasty off of Cornwall Iron Furnace. And eventually, Margaret Coleman Freeman would donate this to the Pennsylvania Museum Commission for this to be a museum about iron mining and the furnace projects that were here. So we'll talk a little bit more about Cornwall Iron Furnace and those different types of things, and I'll see you in a bit.